Hello there and welcome to Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers. In the last video I talked about how loads of new stuff is being made on Vulcanus and how we've upgraded the planet since the last set of videos. And now I think it's time to go off and have a look at where all of that's going. Making all this stuff on Vulcanus and shipping it up to the spaceship allows us to then transport it off to our other planetoids, which means we can then start using it in other places. I touched a little bit on this in the last video, but we've been expanding out on a number of the planets to improve them and make them better using the new technology we found on Vulcanus. One example of this was I dispatched Tristan over to Lignumis, or rather I asked him to do some remote work on Lignumis, specifically upgrading the mining drills on this patch of peat here to be using the large drills, and not just using the big mining drills, but using the highest quality version of those that we have available, which is currently a quality 3, also known as rare. And the reason I wanted to use these is because, well, we were using the normal electric mining drills on here before, and whilst they get the bonus of 80% to productivity that we've managed to acquire through research, as we can see here, all of the mining drills get mining productivity plus 80%, so that's really good. But then the big mining drills also have a resource drain bonus as well. So normally that's 50%, which means you only use up half as much of the resource from the patch as you would with an electric drill when they dig some stuff up. But because these are rare big mining drills, that's brought down even further to 33%, which means the patch will go 3 times as far as it would beforehand, even before we take into account the productivity bonus as well. So whilst the patch claims to be an 89,000 patch, we're going to be getting somewhere in the region of 500,000 out of it, which is quite an improvement. It means this patch will last a lot longer. We can then move those mines to this patch up here and maybe to this one down here, as I think I was discussing in the last video. But we have now got this up and running, and this is working very, very nicely. It's being far, far more efficient than what we were doing before. And there's a similar story over on Nauvis as well, where we were able to upgrade lots of the mines to use the big mining drills. Now, we didn't go with quality ones here, because the productivity bonuses there aren't quite as important. I mean, yes, we'd like to have as much resource coming out of these patches as we can, which is why we've upgraded to big miners. But given in most of these cases, we've got quite a lot of the resources patches available. So there's a copper patch there. With expansions, we've suddenly found a load more copper ore down here. So I think the extra boost from the from having higher quality miners isn't absolutely required. So Tristan and I went round and upgraded a number of the mines around the factory to produce copper and uranium and so on in slightly more efficient ways. Tristan then built a new design for a iron crushing block, and this was rather overbuilt because there was a misunderstanding between him and Mark when Mark asked for, I think Mark asked for it to take 8 input belts when he meant 8 output belts, and so there was a little bit of confusion there. Oh look, there's a belt missing here. Should be the one there. But so Tristan has built up this massively over-spec'd but still quite powerful and therefore useful system for producing crushed iron. So we bring in, as you may be used to, we bring in iron ore somewhere. Yes, we bring in iron ore up here at the top. That then gets fed down into the crushers, and we're now using the big crushers because they give you a plus a 50% productivity bonus, and he's then put productivity modules in, which takes that up to a total of 104% productivity. And you then get a 26% bonus from recycling the iron ore that doesn't crush properly. So we're getting absolutely phenomenal amounts of crushed iron ore coming out, given the amount of iron ore that's going in. And there's so much of it that he's had to put 2 output stations on here to take away the crushed iron ore. He's then also done similar things for crushing coal over here, where, again, bringing in coal, crushing it down, producing massive quantities of crushed coal. This is going really, really well. Clearly, a train has just gone from here, taking some of it away because it's now filling back up again. And in order to use some of that up, I've produced a, well, I say produced, I haven't actually produced. I copy and pasted Mark's previous design from down here, that is a copper smeltery, where, as you can see, we're bringing in the crushed copper ore. That's being then fed into these foundries, which are melting it into molten copper, and then, as a priority, it's being piped round to the fluid stations to be taken away as molten copper, and then as an afterthought being taken down here as plates to be taken away, well, as plates. And that has been done by running a signal from over here on this red cable to all of these machines down here, where we can see that they are only running if there is more than 24,000 in those tanks. So if the tanks are basically full, then these machines will run and make copper plates. Otherwise, they just won't bother, and all of the molten copper will be sent over here to be taken away by trains. I've then copied this up here to do exactly the same thing with making iron plates. So this one is slightly different. We've clearly got absolutely full tanks over here, so all of these machines are running, and we've got the iron plates pouring out down here where they can gradually cool in the chests, and eventually we'll get a chest full of iron for all of these, and the trains will be able to come and take it away. And then right next door, I've got the same sort of thing running where it's making, well, it would be making steel, except we're having to feed away quite a lot of the molten iron by train as well. But once those fill up, we will then be able to make actual steel plates down here, and as you can see, we've got quite a lot of them, enough that there is a train on its way over to pick those up, like that. And so all these molten metals, well, you can see they're being picked up from these stations, so they must be going somewhere. And indeed they are. Over here, Mark has set up a system where he's pulling in molten copper, and there seems to be a shortage of that, so it looks like we need more copper melteries. And also iron plates. This side clearly hasn't been modernised to switch over to using molten iron yet, although I suppose actually it doesn't matter. If he's making plates from molten iron over in the iron production area and then bringing them over here, that's exactly the same efficiency level as if he brought the molten iron over here and then made it into plates locally. So it doesn't actually matter. But more importantly, what we can do down here is then turn that molten copper directly into copper cables, and that's about twice as efficient as I think I ran through the numbers for that last time. So that allows us to make large quantities of copper cables, which can be fed into these boxes in order to cool off, and then pass through these underground belts over to here, where the machines on the opposite side will turn them into circuits. And that's been done so that he can have one column of beacons down the middle here, affecting both the foundries and the assembly machines. Because at the end, over here at the end, there's no point in putting a beacon over here because it wouldn't be able to reach the foundries. And with the cooling systems in the middle, we have to think a little in some slightly funny circuitous ways about how we're going to beacon all of these things. And so this saves a column of beacons, because what he could have done potentially is put the green circuit production on the other side over here and then have the beacons on the outside, but putting them in the middle saves a column of beacons, saves loads of modules, and just makes the build a little bit more compact, a little bit nicer, even if it does have some slightly weird underground belts going all the way through the middle. So that's quite clever. To continue with that theme, I also built up a system to produce a large quantity of red circuits over here, so that's bringing in green circuits, possibly from the system we were just looking at, and also plastic, and then we're bringing in molten copper at the top here, and once again the molten copper is being turned into copper cable in foundries for the extra efficiency bonus from that. We can then feed massive quantities of that down here. The copper cable goes into all of these machines. We're pulling in the green circuits and the plastic as fast as we can, and making large quantities of red circuits that can then pour out the bottom. Now it looks here, there's some sort of problems with the maths in here, because there are some of these machines showing some red lights on them. I think the problem is down to the rate the inserters can output the copper cables at, and we're ending up with some gaps on here. So despite the fact that we've got a decent number of copper cables in 3 out of the 4 boxes that are being unloaded onto these belts, we're still ending up with some gaps along here. Now, I think there are some magic numbers you can put on these. So if we set the stack sizes to, it's either 10 or 8 or something like that. So if I reprogram them all like this, the theory is that in the time it takes for the one inserter to refill its hand, the other inserter will exactly empty its hand. Now that clearly hasn't worked, so maybe it's 8 rather than 10. Looks like it might be 6, having messed around with the numbers a little bit. So you can see down here the inside belt is completely full. We're just waiting. We're sort of at the mercy of waiting for the hot belts to cool along here. But this should allow me to, there we go, get a basically full belt going through here. So I guess I now need to copy those settings across to all of the other inserters we've got around the factory. And then we'll hopefully be able to get full belts going out everywhere. So that's another little tweak to perhaps do, and that should then boost the production of red circuits a little bit. Alternatively, we could accept that the numbers have just been thrown wildly off because we ran out of plastic, and now, okay, some more has arrived now, and we're starting to refill again, but that threw things out a little bit, so we'll have to monitor it and keep an eye on it and work out what to do there. Mike has added in a new city block for producing green ammunition, so it's producing large quantities of it by the looks of it. It's pulling it in from pulling in red ammunition from the train system. I'm not sure where that's being made, possibly from the military science pack. Yes, here we go. So the red science is being fed out to a train here and can then be brought down to here to be made into green ammo, along with the dull uranium that's being brought in. And then we have basically as much green ammunition flooding out here as we want. Plus we're also pumping a load out to go into a train. I'm not quite sure why, but we are. And additionally, we're also chucking some into the logistics system if there's ever less than 2,000 available. So we should always have green ammunition available both on the defensive belt that goes around the outside, on the train system, and also on the logistics system. And if we ever end up with too much of it in the logistics system, perhaps because we've been pulling up large areas of belt, then there's a chest at the top here that will pull out any if there's more than 4,000 in the system. While we're looking at Nauvis, Mark has been busy too. He's been putting in some extra little stone mines that are turning stone directly into landfill, because we have a voracious appetite for landfill on this planet. That's been giving me a number of issues in the past stream trying to get stuff built. He's changed the design of the dragon's teeth, so we were previously getting a lot of alerts from biters coming up to the dragon's teeth, where previously we had the standard chessboard pattern like this. And that meant that the larger sizes of biters weren't able to actually get through the dragon's teeth, so they get caught up on them, and then they get angry and they start to attack them. This meant we took damage, this meant if sometimes they get destroyed, bots would come out, the bots would get destroyed. It was all very, very unfortunate. We didn't like that happening because we were getting a lot of alerts sounding, and it was very, very distracting. So he's fixed that in a couple couple of ways. One is the artillery system that we talked about, whereas an artillery train trundles around the outside and blows all the biters up, and as you can see now, we've pushed them back quite a long way, most of the way around the factory, in fact all the way around the factory. I think the biters are all now out of range of the artillery, and hopefully they're also out of range of the pollution. And no, yes, I think that is... Oh no, up here we're still going to get some attacks from the north by the looks of it. So clearly what's happening across the north side of the factory is very, very polluting, and yeah, we're still going to get some attention up there. But the rest of the way around, it looks okay at the moment. Having said that, I immediately spot the artillery being very, very busy over here, because there's apparently, oh, the biters had expanded. So this is why the artillery goes round and round checking all the time. So we can blow them up. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, so the new design of Dragon's Teeth, the biters can get through these gaps, but it slows them down a lot and forces them to follow sort of specific pathways through it. And that means the flame turrets can light them up much more effectively, and it gives the laser turrets a bit more time to zap them as they come through. But apparently it does mean we end up using a bit more bullet ammunition, but I think we're prepared to take that if it means we're not getting alerted by destruction all the time. Because it got to the point where I think we were all kind of desensitized to the alerts. Now if we hear a destruction alert, we know that we need to go and actually pay attention to it. There has been significant expansion on the power production, which I think I credit to Mark, because I think he's been copy and pasting Tristan's designs. But there's another power station down here, there's 3 over here, 1 up here, 1 over here, 1 up here, 1 down here. There's quite a lot of them scattered around the factory now. And that's because we are using rather a lot of electricity. So you can see at the moment, we're using 3.2 gigawatts. That's quite a bit. If we look back over previous time, we can see production has peaked at 4.8 gigawatts. And we've got 7.6 available, apparently. I'm not sure if that includes accumulators, but we apparently have 7.8 gigawatts available, which is pretty healthy. And at the moment, we're using less than half of it at the moment. But previously, we have seen that spike up quite a bit higher. And that was when all of the foundries were running. So you can see over here that the foundries, despite only having been around for a little while, are already third on the list of amount of power used. If I look back over the last hour, they use a crazy amount of power, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so we've been putting them in all over the place. We've started building with a lot more modules now as well, and beacons, which means our power consumption is going to go up even further. So having a massive amount of headroom on that is very, very valuable. And as part of that, Mark has also put in a city block full of accumulators. So these are there to balance out any power spikes we might have. And that's so they will charge up from all the nuclear plants. They'll get up to, well, they are fully charged now. And that's how we've managed to get up to holding 13.3 gigajoules of power in accumulators available for any spikes we may see. And we saw one apparently about 40 minutes ago, so shortly before I started recording this video, which is quite impressive. I'm not sure what caused that, but something did, and it's good to have that available for when there are those shocks. Tristan has also fixed and expanded the multi-provider station here. Now, this looks the same as when I was talking about it before, so I think that might have been something that had been done previously, and I just didn't tick it off the list. But yes, this system over here is Tristan's doing, and it seems to be, I mean, as far as I can tell, it seems to be working. The only problems we're having with it are due to lack of supply coming over from Vulcanus, because we're just ripping through a lot of stuff very, very quickly on this planet. As you can see, all of the stuff we're pulling out of Vulcanus is allowing us to make massive, massive changes on Nauvis and the other planets as well, allowing us to produce all the resources we could need much, much more quickly and efficiently. He says, looking around and finding most of them are still struggling a little bit. I think there's going to be a bit of catch-up on this planet because we've had enormous amounts of resources now being pulled in and then being filled up in buffers. So there's going to be a bit of catch-up to play, but I think this should allow us to start producing things much more reliably and is now the base that we're going to need to go off and populate the rest of the solar system. So thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been fun. We'll be back on Monday with another stream where we'll be making sure all of this is running nicely and going off and looking at other planets, all of that sort of exciting stuff. I'll be back on Wednesday as well with some more Foundry where I should be digging tunnels and selling robots and all kinds of things like that. Basically playing Factorio, but with an extra third dimension to add a bit more excitement. And then on Thursday and Friday there'll be the usual videos coming out, catching up on what we've been up to around the solar system. So thank you once again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on anything. If you'd like to have a go at this yourself, the Planetary Pioneers mod pack is now available through the Factorio website and through the mod portal in-game. So check that out if you fancy joining us on our adventures around the solar system. Or alternatively, come along on Monday to join us and play vicariously through our mishaps. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.